Lately, the value of games and how much they should cost has been cause for debate online. With increasing development costs, publishers are looking for other ways of monetizing their games without increasing that tried and tested $60 price tag. Indie games are a cheaper alternative, but according to one independent researcher, indie games might be too cheap and AAA games might be too expensive. So what is going on here? All the prices we pay for our video games, all wrong.
There's been a fair amount of chat online recently about the pricing of video games. We pay a solid £40 to £45 or $60 for our AAA products these days, and you might expect to pay as little as $6 or as much as $20 for an indie. But is that right? Does that feel right? Is that the right kind of price? The conversation around this really kicked off when the founder of independent Steam stat tracking site Steam Spy, Sergey Galyonkin, said indie games are too cheap. Sergey believes indie developers are undervaluing themselves and their products by offering steep pre-order discounts on their games. He said, "I see many indie companies offering discounts for pre-orders, sometimes going as high as 33%. Why would you charge your most loyal fans less?"
His argument here seems to be that people who pre-order or buy indie games on launch are often the most loyal fans who want to support the developer and they're willing to pay full price to do so. Sergey cites Jonathan Blow's The Witness, a 3D puzzle-solving adventure game, as a good example of how to price an indie game appropriately. The Witness launched back in January 2016 for £29.99 here in the UK and $39.99 over in the US. The Witness was a critical and commercial success, and according to Steam Spy, it currently has 460,000 owners on Steam. Sergey believes that this would be the case no matter what the price, because Jonathan Blow has a fan base who would support him no matter what. Sergey finishes his argument saying, "If the game is worth the gamer's time, it's also worth their money." Now, are we paying too little for our indie games? Are we paying too much for our AAA games?
Value for money is really important in gaming, and there's so many things to think about. I think indies are fine. I think indies are priced great. AAA games, I feel, are too expensive in some cases. It's a very complicated issue, and there's like a rigidity to video games, like the way they sell them. Everything is $60, everything's 40 quid, everything's 45 quid, and what you get for that money is so different.
What he said about not charging your most loyal fans less, it seems like an arse about tit way to do things. Like, he's obviously a businessman looking at it from a business perspective.
What he's done there is say something on the internet which should only ever really be said in a boardroom. Like, he said, well, these guys are going to buy the game anyway, so why don't we just charge them full price? You know, whereas the moral kind of internet perspective on it would be, no, they're your most loyal fans, like, you know, reward them. As far as pricing specifically though, it's so important to the success and the failure of a game what the actual price is, that too many companies don't get creative with it. Too many companies don't think about the product that they've got and go, what is that worth? Because they'll just put the stock full price on it and then go beyond that afterwards with season passes, DLC, microtransactions, find other ways to make money out of it.
Would you prefer to be charged more for a game outright and then not given like microtransactions and shit in your game?
Yes, please.
Would you pay $80 for a game? If it's a decent enough game, the market dictates the prices basically, isn't it?
So with the debate around the pricing of indies, it naturally leads to a larger discussion around the pricing of all games. Industry figures like Cliff Bleszinski have spoken out about the evolving market for games, saying AAA game development is unsustainable in the long term. Bleszinski believes $60 is a lot of money to ask for, and asking players to put down that kind of money multiple times a year is too risky as a business model. This is why Bleszinski's own game Lawbreakers sells for $25, because it is a multiplayer only title, and he doesn't believe charging $60 for a multiplayer only game is fair. The result is a strange situation where the value of games are constantly called into question, and some people won't even buy games unless they're on sale or have a certain amount of content in them.
For example, The Order 1886 was a 6-hour-long shooter which cost £49.99 at launch, and it had very little replay value and no multiplayer functionality. The Order was criticised for its length, price and linear campaign, with players saying that it wasn't worth the price Sony were asking for it. However, the recent success of Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice has shown that shorter games can do well when priced appropriately. Hellblade was billed as an independent AAA with 8 to 10 hours of gameplay, so it was priced at £24.99 because the developers, Ninja Theory, thought that this was a fair price to ask for that much content. But at the end of the day, a game is only worth what a person is willing to pay for it. It just seems that at the moment we're willing to pay $60 for a game, $40 on top of that for a season pass, and $3 here and there for the odd microtransaction.
Ignoring the fact that Hellblade is a much better piece of work than The Order is, what you're actually getting in terms of time sat down in front of a screen playing this game is very similar. But Hellblade did it right. They recognised that this was kind of lightweight in many ways that people expect. There's no deep RPG system, there's no multiplayer, there's not a really super long campaign. It's a very very linear experience, and it's indie very much so in that sense. They identified that. Let's charge them 25 quid for it.
I think the reason they can do that is because they are an independent developer and they haven't got the overheads that a big production studio might have. They can happily charge a discount price like that, knowing that they're going to recoup all the expenses that they've paid out to produce the game. Big developers might think differently, and they might think that we've got to charge full price to cover all the wages for the people who've been working on this. They might have 200 people working on it. Hellblade might have 15, for example. Pay for all those wages as well as all the publishing and the marketing, all costs, that, which balloons.
Yeah.
So to make that back, they might add in a season pass. They throw that out there, microtransactions, extras, add-ons and shit like that. Ninja Theory have done something really good here, and I think they should be commended for doing it. Personally, I think that big studios spend far too much money on their production. They pass that cost off to us, and they try and justify, oh, we can't afford making these games anymore. You don't need 200 people to make a game, surely.
Look at Ubisoft and the Assassin's Creed franchise. It was a good AAA product when it first came out. As the time went on, they just threw more people at it. There was studios across the world working on this one game, like 1,000 people at a time working on one game, adding features to the game that, do we really want them? Do we really want multiplayer in these games? Does every single game have to be open world? I think they should start doing more and just making more focused projects, making smaller projects like Hellblade, bringing the price down, making them more affordable, and making them shorter experiences that are cheaper. You don't have to be bigger and better every single time.
And it is important to get the prices right. So if you price them out, people end up pirating games.
Yeah.
I'm not buying your game, it's too expensive. But the thing that it boils down to me is like value for money. Like how many hours of good gameplay am I going to get out of this purchase? Like you think like Persona 5, it's over 200 hours worth of gameplay. GTA 5, no wonder that's doing so well. GTA Online, you can play that for years, literally.
Yeah. GTA Online is a huge success because you can just play it in perpetuity, and it's the one game that you need. You can spend that one like 30 quid or whatever, and that's it. You can play games with your friends online then. There's two big things that need to happen for me. They need to get more creative with pricing and the scope of products as far as AAA gaming goes. Indies are doing a lot of cool stuff. AAA is learning lessons from indies all the time on the gameplay front. Why don't they start doing it properly when it comes to sizing up your projects and deciding, does everything need to be a third-person, new universe, open world with multiplayer, and does it need all that? Or can it still be a great game that sells well without all that stuff and a better focus? And second of all, why are digital games more expensive than the physical games? For example, you go to the PlayStation Store, you download something, you buy it for £55. If you went to a supermarket and you could get that game for £42, the exact same game, but it's on a disc, it's been manufactured, it's in a box, there's staff have been paid to put that box on a shelf, that shelf has been lit by lighting, there's all kinds of things going on there. £15 cheaper in many cases than the digital version, which they can just replicate. I really don't know what it is. It must be like some kind of protecting the bricks and mortar shops or something. That has to be the only reason that they do it, because it's crazy.
Well, that doesn't make sense for a supermarket. They don't need
games.
They don't need games to be able to know for the profit. Exactly, they've got cabbages, man.
So that's what we think about the prices of video games these days. I mean, what do you think, guys? Do you think they're too expensive, AAA games? Do you think indie games are actually too cheap? Let us know down in the comments. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe. You can see more things like this every single day. There's another video right there which you can watch right now, and a link to Patreon if you want to support us and the channel. See you next time.